Yeah, against this right back, Charlie, definitely.
Hello?
People, deluded. I'm back again. Don't worry, Andrew. I heard you, man. It's not live. It's not live, but we're live now when this is on YouTube, man. I didn't want to scare you. I thought, because I know you're pressed for time, let me get straight into it.
Sounds good.
Morning, my guy. Appreciate for doing this. Obviously, people, by the time this comes out, it obviously is live. It's gonna be short but packed with a lot of info because I know he's pressed for time. Obviously, you lot won't see it now, but I've seen his message about the time, the title, which shows how early it is in the morning. How you doing, my guy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm there, man. I'm just happy riding this momentum that Arsenal going into international break in great circumstances, bro, man. Like, yeah, I know. I mean, you've been on my channel before, and there's all this information will be in the description. But let people know who you are, what you do, and you know what you kind of an expert in, sort of thing.
Yeah, my name's Andrew Todos. I run the social media pages Zorya Londonsk, and I'm a British-Ukrainian sports journalist, essentially. So cover Ukrainian football predominantly, but also do a bit of boxing sometimes, and Olympics and athletics and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm guess the main go-to guy when it comes to Ukrainian football and all that kind of jazz.
You heard what he said, man. He's the main go-to guy. So make sure you're following him on all his socials and supporting the movement. As you mentioned, you know, you being British Ukrainian, you being an expert in Ukrainian football, perfect example to, you know, to just hear you waffle about Zinchenko, man. He's been a great signing for Arsenal Football Club. But what have you made of his impact at Arsenal on the field, off the field, his vocalness, tactically? Let me have it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that he'd be a good signing for Arsenal when he joined. Initially, I thought that Arteta was signing him to be sort of maybe back up to Xhaka or something like in the midfield. But as the season's gone on, I've read a few articles. I think Sam Dean from the Telegraph wrote that it was actually Arteta that put him at left back at City and sort of started that whole inverted fullback thing, and where he's just all over the pitch. So if anything, it's sort of like a match made in heaven between the two. They've known each other for ages. Zinchenko obviously supports Arsenal. There's been loads of pics from when he was younger where he was in Arsenal shirts. And
yeah,
all that
man, I loved all of that, man.
So it sort of combined with his ability and his performances this season. On top of that, you've got how well he's been performing, the sort of leadership qualities he's been putting in, and also just the sheer passion. And I feel that there's obviously been loads of talk from Odegaard and loads of other players in the squad where they're saying that the impact of Zinchenko and Jesus coming in from City with their winning mentality, having won the league so many times, albeit maybe not at the star, maybe not being the stars of the show in that
More
City
rotation
team.
options.
Now they've been given that chance, and obviously Jesus been injured for the past few months and slowly coming back. But still, that's obviously got an impact in training and sort of rubbing off on people. Like even that story when Kivior came, like I think he signed like the day before, and Zinchenko dragged him into the dressing room after the win and was like, "Come on, man, you got to sign up to this." So
you got to get with it, yeah.
Exactly. So it's good to see sort of Gary Neville's sort of words from early on in the season saying he's got no leadership quality sort of come to bite him.
What a guy, man. Not like he leads his country. What a
guy. So yeah, and I mean we've got like at the end of this week we've got England Ukraine at Wembley, so that'll be a good one. Hopefully see Zinchenko play in that one most likely, and possibly potentially come out as captain in that one because Ukraine's first captain, Andriy Yarmolenko, he's a bit injured at the moment, touch and go wherever he'll even feature. So that'll be quite a cool thing to see Zinchenko lead Ukraine out at Wembley.
I mean, you mentioned it there. You kind of touched on him playing left back and that he could have been like a backup to Xhaka and things like that. Do you ever see him going back into centre mid at club level? Because I think, you know, he does. I mean, he basically is in midfield in the game, anyways. I think obviously he's a midfielder by heart. I love him at left back, and you know, it's almost a byproduct of him not being able necessarily to break into the City team. But I just think with what he's doing, he's happy at left back. I'm happy to see him at left back, but I just feel obviously. You look at a few of our midfielders, they haven't really got the longevity in terms of age that Zinchenko has. I don't know. Do you think there's a possibility he steps back into midfield, or do you personally feel it's, you know, this inverted left back thing for the foreseeable future?
I mean, it works really well tactically when he pushes up and then essentially, well, you're playing three at the back kind of thing, or where it works out that he's allowed to go on that free roam. He can either go out wide on the left, he can go into the middle. And like you said, I mean, if you ever had serious injury to like Xhaka and Partey at the same time or something like that, I'm sure that Arteta would probably slot him in a bit more advanced and play Tierney at left back. Or there's also the rumours that Tierney might be leaving in the summer. So, I mean, as long as Arsenal were to bring in maybe a backup to Zinchenko at the back, that maybe is a bit more defensively rigid, as they say, because Zinchenko is great, and I saw 442 called him the best left back in the world for this year or something like that. So, but there are sometimes a bit of lapses in concentration defensively, which he just isn't. That's just not his forte. He's improved exponentially over the past few years since he's been playing there, but he does get caught sometimes. Like even the goal against Palace, just defense, like it was maybe his man who he sort of let go and in that goal. So I think that he's very much got very much the possibility of playing there. I just feel that at the current moment, Arteta obviously has got him playing there, but it's always good to have that variety and that flexibility and versatility to actually, if needed, he can certainly step up there. And I'm sure that there will be more than one occasion where he might have to slot in there due to sort of rotational things. And especially next season, you know, Champions League and all the different competitions, there might have to be some sort of shifting around the park.
I mean, that's why I'm so happy to have him, because he obviously is probably more at home as a 10 or an 8. He's doing what he's doing at left back. Like you said, you know, he's never going to be, in terms of defensive outlet, you know, the greatest 1v1 or the greatest of marking. But I mean, I'm sure Arteta comprehended that with us improving defensively and the use of someone like Partey, you kind of double up. Personally, where I look at Zinchenko, I think he's only had 3 games where I think he could have done a lot better. I think the 2 legs against Sporting, and I would say Man United back in September. But other than that, as you said, you know, his leadership qualities, what he does off the ball, what he does on it, what he's given to Arsenal is a breath of fresh air, and he barely cost anything really and truly. He's at the right age of in his 20s. And for Arsenal, we haven't had consistent signings that make an immediate impact during the season continue, and you can see long term how they tie in. Now, obviously, the system might change just like how it did to Tierney, and Zinchenko might go back into midfield. Who would you say between him and Jesus is the signing of the season? Because if you asked me a few months ago, I would have said Jesus, but obviously he's been injured. Zinchenko's been doing his thing, and I'm a big fan of Kieran Tierney. But it's like once you just see what Zinchenko brings, you can't have an ordinary left back anymore, man. So, who would you say signing of the season between the two of them? I know it's difficult.
To be honest, I agree with you. Like you said at the start of the season, Jesus was just linking up the play. He was sort of the missing link in Arsenal's attack. And then obviously he got injured. Zinchenko at the start of the season was in and out of the team as well because he had a couple injuries.
Yeah, he had some knocks as well.
And like you said, that Man United game, it was like, oh, is he going to be able to sort of like build on that? Because he didn't play particularly well against Antony in that particular game. But since then, it's sort of been like non-stop from Zinchenko since he came back from that injury. He played really well against Chelsea, I think, at the Bridge. Back in when he made that injury comeback, and ever since I guess the World Cup, he's sort of been a mainstay in the team and playing really well. And obviously, I mean, in particular that game against Bournemouth, where he was just literally everywhere.
Yeah, I mean the man's insane on the football pitch, bro. Insane.
So it does help that obviously he's got this. But the funny thing is that I probably would say he's the signing of the season. Obviously. Because of just the way he's impacted the squad in general. I feel that if he wasn't there, that Arsenal tactically might be lacking a bit, just in the sense that you've always got this extra man in midfield, and then when needed, when you're broken or something, you then have that person back in the defence, and it's something that Tierney certainly doesn't have in his locker at the moment. He's just more of that traditional fullback that goes up and down the wing. And in general, I feel that especially if Arsenal, once Arsenal win the title, which I feel seems
if I don't look at the league table, bro, let's just keep working on.
I think it would be very hard to not include him at least in team of the season. That's my opinion anyway, because I think he really has been a revelation, and like we've said, that motivation that he brings to the dressing room, like he's one of the. I know he's a bit of a joker. Some people say he can't be taken 100% seriously because he likes being a bit of a likes doing a bit of jokes, and he's always taken a piss out of by teammates and all that kind of thing. But he is a great motivator, and he loves doing the team talks and all that kind of thing. Like, for example, if Arsenal did an all or nothing right now, I heard that there is rumours that it's being on or something, but like I'm sure that
we can't miss it this year.
He'd be one of the main guys, like literally every pre-game, like shouting stuff in sort of after Arteta speaks and all that kind of thing, and getting people on the pitch. Like you see the celebrations that he does at full time each time. Even this weekend after the game, where he's just opened his window and
that was crazy.
Fist pumping out the pub and stuff. So he's a great guy. He's very much invested in the club. I feel that he was loved at City, but now it's sort of at a different level at Arsenal because he's an integral part of the team. So it's good to see, and fingers crossed that obviously can continue until the end of the campaign, and obviously for future seasons too.
I mean, you said it there. As much as I'm a big fan of what Zinchenko brings on the pitch, technically, tactically, all of that stuff, is the mentality. And I remember early in the season, he came out with chest and said, we're going for the league title. And I wonder if at the time, if that was warranted, if that was sensible, what his teammates were saying. But I always look at it, your ambitions and your goals in life have to scare you. And I'm sure Arteta probably in August wasn't talking about a league title, but fairly hopeful on major honours. When you've got the Xhakas, the Zinchenkos, now Jorginho, these kind of guys, which I call somewhat assistant coaches because they seem like they relay Arteta's tactics. I think it's the mentality with everything that I like with Zinchenko the most, really and truly. Like, the man's insane. He just seems like someone that will give everything until his heart stops, really and truly. And that's the sort of thing we need at this football club. Obviously, to go to the next level, again, we need a couple of people on his level. Again, switching away from Zinchenko, because we could talk about him. Obviously, with you being a Ukrainian expert, it's the chance to talk about Mudryk. First thing I want to ask you, for all this hype about, he was called the Ukrainian Neymar, all of these things, he's joined in January. He hasn't quite hit off at Chelsea. What do you think's gone wrong from him tactically? What do you think's gone wrong with him as an individual at Chelsea?
Well, I think when I came on back on your show, I think it was in January, we were chatting a bit about, like, he's kind of unproven. Yeah, he played well in the Champions League, but he might need a bit of time for adaptation. And I sort of stand by that. I feel that I expected him to maybe hit the ground running, especially after that first cameo against Liverpool. I was like, oh, he's looking good. But sadly, it's come at the same time as Chelsea being really crap.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I guess that sort of like a storm in a teacup, but both of them, in terms of he started a few games. Chelsea were really lacking, and I went to a couple, and especially the one against Fulham. I think it was his first home game, where he only played the first 45 minutes, was subbed, like had zero touches, not zero touches, but like zero passes, zero anything. And it was just really strange. I feel that at the moment, Graham Potter seems to have sorted out exactly what he's doing, and Chelsea are playing a bit better just over the past few games. They've got Real Madrid coming up in the Champions League, and I'm sure that Mudryk will be getting a few more maybe starts towards the end of the campaign. But as far as I see it, it just seems like an adaptation process. Chelsea out of maybe the fight for Europe per se. They might be able to get like a Conference League spot or something, if they even
the big
want
one,
that.
Champions
Because
League
sometimes,
window.
yeah, exactly. So, and like unless they win the Champions League, which
Yeah,
you know
of
we've
course.
seen stranger things happen from sides. But Real Madrid's not going to be easy at all anyway. But for sure, I mean, I expected a bit more from him, in all honesty, just from what I've seen. But like, I've watched a few videos of him in training, and looks to be fine. It just seems that maybe Potter doesn't have the faith in him as much, and I feel that he probably wasn't one of Potter's players that he wanted to bring in compared to Arsenal, where it seemed like Arteta was the one that was after him. Well, alongside obviously everyone in the back room, but he did really want him.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it continues. But I feel that maybe not a write-off towards the end of the season, but he probably needs a pre-season with the team where he's going to be playing a number of friendlies where he can get a number of 90 minutes in and then sort of hit the ground running in the new season. Because at the moment, I think it's probably something to do a bit to do with sort of match sharpness, because he's always in and out of the team. He played well against Leicester, but then he was on the bench again against Everton and didn't even come on. So it's like you don't really know what's going on over there and what's happening. I guess time will tell, but he chose Chelsea in the end. That's, you know, they, I guess, stumped up the money more up front than Arsenal did, despite offering the same sort of fees. And I'm sure that whilst Mudryk was obviously agreed to the move, I'm sure that he wasn't the only one that was involved in the final decision, with all parties involved. So we'll see how that decision ends up playing out over the next few seasons, because he's signed a long contract there, and well, you never know with Chelsea, up and down all the time, and especially these new owners, pretty unpredictable as well.
Like you said, man, I think he signed a 7 or so year deal. I mean, it's been, what, 6 or 7 months into that deal. I don't think he should be written off. I echo your point about, obviously, Chelsea collectively are not really doing well. Not a single player is really thriving. That kind of excuse has to be given to, obviously, Mudryk. I feel it's more of a culture shock than anything. You know, he's come from Ukraine. He's playing in the Premier League. He's been hyped. He's joining a team that isn't performing. As you mentioned the point with Graham Potter, he's still understanding his teammates. A lot of it is set up kind of for him to fail. And I remember when Odegaard signed for us in January of that year, whenever he first initially signed on loan, he didn't hit it off straight away. So as much as I enjoy bantering my Chelsea supporting friends and whatnot, I think Mudryk will get it right, bro. I really do. I don't think Potter will be there next year and things like that. So in hindsight, it does look like we got the better of the situation with obviously signing Trossard, with him being a bit older, him being in the Prem and things like that.
Yeah, he's ready-made. Yeah.
This is it. Do you actually feel, had Mudryk have signed for Arsenal at the moment, he would have looked a lot better? Because again, he probably would have been slowly phased into the team. We're ahead of our project.
Yeah,
and he did want the move and whatnot.
I think so. In all honesty, I feel that he would have probably been broken into the team a lot more lightly. Maybe he wouldn't have got those starts early on into those matches. He would have been coming off the bench. Might have started in these Europa League games, that kind of thing. And that would have just slowly sort of edged him in to the ground, you know, at Arsenal, and sort of learning what Arteta wants from him. Whereas at Chelsea, it seems they need the results sort of like immediately.
Yeah,
whereas
sort of thing.
Whereas at Arsenal, we've seen that it seems like a bit more of a stable situation. Arteta's been there for a long time. I think there's a lot less pressure. You guys are playing well anyway. Trossard has been playing well as well, like obviously with his assists, but predominantly he's been starting a couple games, but he's mainly been coming off the bench as well. That's where he's been having the impact. And I feel that, especially the way that Arsenal play, where there is a bit more structure tactically as well. Whereas Chelsea, it's just all up in the air and different combinations being added in. It's
facts.
It's just, that's how it goes.
I don't think he's been helped because he's played with like Cucurella. I can't remember the game, but there was a game where Cucurella was not giving him anything, no overlapping, no 5-yard passes. And I actually think Mudryk actually went left back for a couple of moments or whatever. And fans were saying, you know what, let's make him a fullback and things like that. What do you think happens with him next season if he doesn't necessarily, like, if we were to go into January of 2024 and we're still saying this sort of thing, regardless of where Chelsea are? Do you see him going out on loan? Could it be nipped in the bud? Even though I don't think this would be a case, just purely playing devil's advocate.
Possibly. I don't know, because you don't know what Chelsea are like it recently, man. The fact of the matter is the fact they paid so much money for him.
A
I
lot
don't
of
know
money,
whether
yeah.
they'd be able to put him out on loan straight away, unless they've got someone else to play there. Because Sterling's in and out of the team at the moment. He's nowhere near as good as he was for City, and I feel that that City team was sort of made for him, with the way that Pep and um, sort of set the team up. He was great at scoring tap-ins and all that kind of stuff.
A
Whereas
lot of space to
sort
run
of
in behind as well.
yeah, exactly. Whereas Chelsea, it's a lot more limited. It's a lot more limited tactically as well, because I don't like, you watch some of these games. Yeah, he's sort of worked out something now, with the three at the back and going for it. But even this weekend, when they drew with Everton 2-2, and they were pretty comfortable for most of the game, and then just lapse in concentration, and there you go, 2-2, and that's sort of the story of their season. So, like you said, I'm not sure how long Potter's got over there, and I feel that maybe another manager who is a bit more tactically um, sort of rounded might help the team a bit more, and that possibly could help Mudryk go there, because everyone said that Potter is a great uh, sort of people manager and that
He's
kind of
got a
thing.
degree
But I
in that,
feel
yeah.
the fact of the matter is that he's got about 100 players in the team, whereas at Brighton he probably had a lot less strength in depth. Um, so it's a lot easier to manage that. Whereas at
Facts.
Chelsea, if you've got four players that are worth over 50 million and that are playing in a similar position, you've got to manage that well. And I don't know, I feel that he is struggling a bit in general. So um, I feel that obviously their last chance really is the Champions League. Obviously, this campaign, Real Madrid not going to be easy, but Mudryk has played relatively well against Real Madrid in recent seasons. So who knows? Let's see if he can at least get some minutes, because that's not even a given under Potter of late. And 100% hope that Mudryk, even if he's not performing at Chelsea too well at the moment, can put a good performance in against England on Sunday at Wembley, because it'll be a big opportunity playing at Wembley for the first time for him. And Ukrainians have got a habit of maybe not performing too well for their club side, and then putting something out of the bag for their national team, like Andriy Yarmolenko loved to do when he was at West Ham. So sort of all focus on that for the time being. But yes, the remainder of the season, I guess it's a write-off for Chelsea in general anyway. So start off from the new campaign.
I mean, you're right there. I mean, what goes for Mudryk is you can't, who knows, De Zerbi could end up at Chelsea one day. You can't have him saying you're good, Arteta going after you, and everyone in Europe going after you. You have to have some sort of talent. Things just don't work out or do work out. So I do think he'll get it right. I think one thing that goes against Mudryk for as much as he's hyped in the price tag, as you said, you look at Graham Potter, he's got 100 players. He's got some players that are more seasoned for their countries, more household names, probably has to play the game a bit. It's probably easier keeping Mudryk out the team than a Sterling, a João Felix, or who have you, because they're probably less likely to make up noise and things. So I think that does go against him. My last question for you before I let you get out of here. Obviously, we've spoken about Zinchenko, we've spoken about Mudryk. Who's the next Ukrainian lad in any position coming up, man, that you think, people are going to be looking at or whatever? It doesn't really matter what position, because it seems like something's in the water in Ukraine, man. You got a couple players coming out now, man, that we could do with.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll name a couple. There's this one attacking midfielder, Jorge Sudakov, and he's been playing for Shakhtar. He's, I think, 20, 21. He's just got his sort of senior call up to the national team, so maybe people might see him against England next week. But he's a very exciting talent. Can play sort of across the front line, but he's more of an attacking player. Likes little jinky runs. Great at linking up play. Shakhtar this season as well. He's been playing pretty well in the Champions League for them, Europa League too. Probably the best player for them in that game that they lost last week, 7-1 to Feyenoord, which was just every shot
wow.
that final took was going in, kind of thing, from that edge of the box. So
One of them days, yeah.
Yeah, one of them days. But he's certainly someone to keep an eye out on, and I'm sure that he'll probably get, maybe not immediately, maybe not this summer, but I'm sure in a couple of seasons he'll probably get a move somewhere. Maybe not for the big bucks of Mudryk, but he certainly looks like a talent. And then secondly, I think the other one that's probably more likely to be making a move this summer is Anatoly Trubin, who's the goalkeeper for
The
Shakhtar.
goalie, yeah, he's decent.
So yeah, he did concede 7 goals against Feyenoord.
Yeah, I mean, let's not talk about that, but
that might have knocked off 5 million off his off the fee that Shakhtar want for him. But seriously, in general, he's been like keeping them in a lot of the games that they played in. Obviously, in Europe, they rode their luck a fair bit against Rennes in the previous round. He was like a penalty saving hero for them in that one, and he's pulled off some great saves against the likes of Real Madrid and Leipzig earlier on in the campaign. And there's been talk that he's been linked to a couple of Premier League sides and Italy. So I'm sure that he'll probably be the next one that Shakhtar might shift on. So it'll be interesting to see. But there's plenty of talent that can still be mined, and hopefully not leave for such a big fee where the burden is straight on everyone's back, but can settle in a bit more of a low profile and then build on from that.
I mean, you said it kind of there. Again, I know I just said last question, but it's just come to my mind. Again, maybe more so last season in Europe, but every time I see Ukrainian teams, or actually some teams that have nothing to do with Ukraine, it seems like there's always a young-ish sort of player, like no older than 25. And like you said, with the goalie, we've obviously been discussing Mudryk. Zinny's not that old, even though he's been here for a while. Has there been some sort of, I don't know how to make it make sense, but like an academy drive throughout the whole of Ukraine, or more of a national push on getting certain footballers to a certain level? Because it seems like there's a gold mine. Like obviously I'm an Arsenal fan, we're focused on the top 6, but when you genuinely look around, there's always a Ukrainian youngish player popping about in any position. So has there been like a drive in Ukraine to get that sort of level of footballer playing in Europe's top 5 leagues and wanted by big clubs and all of that sort of stuff, and ultimately better for your national team?
Yeah, I mean, it started over the past, I guess, year and a half, really. Before like the war started properly, it was a lot harder to get Ukrainian players out of the Ukraine because Dynamo Kiev, Shakhtar, they offered relatively decent wages. You can be comfortable there. You can leave when you're past 25 or whatever. And also the clubs had a lot of like pulling power to keep them there. Like saying, now we're not accepting 30 million or whatever. We want 50. And like obviously this winter showed that Shakhtar can get whatever they want.
We get what we want and nothing less. Yeah, man.
But in general, it's like there has been this sort of opening of the doors because of the war, because the football in Ukraine is sort of dropping in quality a bit. The academies have been going on for ages, and I'm sure that they will continue. But just in general, with some of the talents that want to play football more regularly. So we got Zabani, who's one of Ukraine's best sort of centre backs. He's still relatively young, I think only 20, and he's moved to Bournemouth. Not played there yet because he's been a bit injured, but he's like a big one to watch going forward in the future. And he didn't come cheap either, 25 million. Victor Tsahankov, who's been at Dynamo Kiev for years and been one of those FM wonder kids that everyone's loved, and he's always had an issue with getting out of Dynamo Kiev. And this winter, he finally was allowed to do so because he only had 6 months left on his contract, and he sort of basically forced the club to say, "Can you sell me?" And now he's at Girona in La Liga, and he's scoring braces. He's scoring braces like he did at the weekend. He's playing really well, and I'm sure that he will move to a bigger club, either if not in the summer or at least in maybe a year's time, because that's the kind of sort of stepping stone move that he needed. And it's good to see because, you know, we've seen loads of other Ukrainians in the past in the Premier League that have had issues. Yarmolenko came when he was like 28. He had a really serious injury when he joined Borussia Dortmund, and that was already when he was 27. And I mean, there's only so much development you can do once you move that late. And I mean, the younger that these players move on, the more potential they've got to add to the quality, you know, and Ukraine can possibly, it's always the model that everyone wants Ukraine to follow, turn into something like a Croatia, where they are competing at every World Cup and Euros. And why can't Ukraine do that? They've got the talent. It just needs to be a structure involved where these players can start continuing to play on a high level week in, week out. And well, we'll see what the future holds.
I mean, you said it there, Andrew, man. I've enjoyed this chat with you, man. Let people know where they can find you one last time before we get out of here, man. It's been a fantastic chat about Mudryk and everything else, man. Let people know they can find you, my guy.
Yeah, sure. At Zorya Londonsk on Twitter, Instagram, and I'm on Sky Sports News from time to time whenever there's a Ukraine-related game on. So watch out for me there and on other channels and stuff. Got a podcast too, Ukraine Plus Football. It's available on all podcast platforms where we, you know, fortnightly discuss Ukrainian football, some of those new and up and coming talents, and other stuff all in English. So pretty accessible for anyone who wants to find out a bit more.
I mean, you heard the man. You heard where you can find him. By the time this video comes out, people, in the description, you'll see his Twitter, you'll see his podcast and all the rest of it. So make sure you're showing him some love, supporting, and make sure you're getting your fix of Ukrainian football, because in the next few months, there might be a next Mudryk that you want to waffle about, and this man will be talking about it first, isn't it? So go and get your scoop over there. Andrew, it's early in the morning, so I appreciate you for tuning in, man. It's been a fantastic half an hour, bro. Take care of yourself. Obviously,
thank you, man.
No worries, man. As I said, people, follow him on his socials, smash the like button and subscribe. We're out.
Always just that active and defending.
I think it's like